fines and nothing happens to them. No effort to retrieve the monies.
And how do we end up with such severe leakages? Is the system not digitized properly? Because if you look at this particular one, there was a total of 1,112,895 Ghana cedis, 96 pesos that was lost to the state in the payment of 3 persons who have been named. Of course, over here, you see the full names of the persons were written in the report. Alote Emon James, Kwache Nanayao Esiedu, Adam Habibu, and they were drawing some gross income of about 22,000 cedis, 29,000 cedis, 19,000 cedis. The first one, Alote James, for some 12 months. Kwache Nanaya Osiedu for some 24 months. Adam Habibu, 24 months. So much time, and nobody was able to notice. How is the system running?
The point is this, that whatever you put in a digital system is what comes out. So the people who have deliberately put it there end up paying. Not that they haven't noticed it, they are aware because they have deliberately put the names there. They don't find it necessary to do anything about it.
Can these things be traced down to exactly who keyed in from the beginning?
Yes, because there are schedule officers. People have various roles to play in the Ministry of Finance and the Controller and Accountant General's office. So it's not difficult to find out who put those names in. And before somebody inputs the names, they have to get an instruction.
It's exactly what I was going to ask, because can we hold the shadow officers accountable, because they are probably acting under instructions?
The shadow officers act on what they have. The only thing they can do is to insist that there should be documentation, written instruction asking them to input certain names into the thing. That would also include the salaries that they are due. So if they have disregarded the instructions, that's why you can hold them. But otherwise, if they go by the instruction that they have got, then you go after the people that have given them the instruction. So
we should be looking towards their superiors.
You should be looking towards their superiors, not only in the Controller Accountant General, but also in the Ministry of Finance. Somebody put them there. Why did they put them there? What was their job description and all that?
Vitus, the other question I have is, especially because you're an anti-corruption campaigner, we've seen quite a number of these incidences, some of which we have even spoken to you about here on Spotlight. This report, however, says that there's some little good news, which shows that these infractions have dropped since 2018. Is it good news to say we are less corrupt?
You see, when we are experiencing an economic crisis, it doesn't matter how much we dropped. Why should there be leakages? Why should some people be allowed to pocket money for their personal use? Are we not paying the people that we have employed to ensure that these things don't happen? So there's no good news. They should have said that, oh, we have not lost any money. No irregularities at all.
Right.
But as for a drop, it doesn't mean much. And what is the percentage of the drop?
Right.
And I've said that these things are repeated every year. The Auditor General comes out with this, and then, so what should we be happy about the drop? How much is the drop? So I don't think that's good news at all.
Right.
We put qualified people to manage our accounts, our finances. We expect them to ensure that nothing wrong happens.
We expect results. Right. Thank you, Vitus Azim. He's an anti-corruption campaigner. He's saying that we have put qualified persons in all of these institutions to ensure that the right thing is done, that due diligence is followed, and state resources are used judiciously. Unfortunately, it's disgraceful that these kind of infractions continue to happen. And I was reading somewhere on social media an argument about this particular report, and someone said nobody gets punished. We've read the Auditor General's report for many years, And we consistently see these cases that have been cited, and never at any point are we told that this person has been punished for whatever issue or whatever went wrong in any of these institutions. So where is the deterrent? Where is the deterrent for people not to do this in these institutions? They're getting away with it. Anyway, let me just move to Adam Senan, who's co-chair of the Citizens Movement Against Corruption. He's also on the line. Adam, the surprise here, or maybe it's not a surprise to you, but our revered judges are indicted in this report.
Well, yes. I've heard one judge on air saying that the Auditor General erred because he did not ask the Chief of Staff how the approvals were done, which I found quite intriguing, because we know that the process laid out in law involves the Ministry of Finance and not the Chief of Staff. So I'm not quite sure where that came up from. But auctions are very technical issues. And the question on my mind would be that why would anyone think that a car that is not 5 years old, that's just about 3 years old, is being sold, and at what price? I don't know. I mean, the judge's reportage was that they were given an option. There was a letter information that was provided, and they were asked to apply, and they did apply. And so, in other words, they are shielded from the fact that the process was not followed appropriately. I think it's good that the Auditor General highlights it. I think that in all these matters, we need to dig a little deeper to find out who was involved in getting these this process, as it were, either corrupted, either not followed, non-compliant, all these things. We need to find out who were the people involved and hold them accountable.
Right. We've also had some of them comment saying they were not aware that they were actually doing something wrong. Is this even possible?
Well, yes. I mean, the one I heard on air said that it sounded like the judicial system or council was written to, saying that there's opportunity for you to apply for this. And they applied and put in their bids. And at the end of the day, you know, so I was a bit curious, because ideally this should not have happened. But one needs to look at the correspondence and find out what is going on. In recent times, we've heard that the Chief of Staff's office has been involved in car auctioning, and perhaps we need to find out a little more about what's going on in that respect, because as far as the law is concerned, I'm not sure the Chief of Staff and that office has a role. So who knows what is going on? We need to find out a little more about what exactly transpired.
Right. Adam, still on the arguments in favor of the judges, we've also seen some commentary that they are not responsible exactly to ensure that due process is followed in the auction of the vehicles, and they are simply beneficiaries. Is the beneficiary liable in any way? Can the beneficiary be held responsible for somebody not doing due diligence?
I think that's where I am a bit concerned. The truth is, yes, the beneficiary cannot be held responsible. The angle from which I've approached this is that the offer appeared to be too good to be true, and therefore our seniors should have been asking questions. That's where I come from. It appears to be an ethical issue for me. What is right is when vehicles are being auctioned, it should be at a certain level. In a country where we are all complaining that our resources are being spent, you know, just anyhow, why would you have a situation where a car which is not yet 5 years old, you know, Toyota, whatever spec, is being auctioned? And the auction fees, they are just unbelievable. I mean, the offers that people were making were just unbelievable. So yes, in terms of an auction, and it's a technical thing where people put in bids, the highest bidder gets. If the highest bidder is 2,000 Ghana, so be it. In terms of that process, one cannot fault them. But the question in my mind is this: the specs of what you were quoting for, were you given any inkling on what it is you were being offered? And if you knew what it was, didn't it raise any flags? And that's the only issue in my mind, that what was on offer, didn't it raise any flags for them, such that somebody would ask that, why are we auctioning these kind of cars at this time? I don't know. I don't have the answers.
Adam, what's the best way to go about these things so that we prevent future occurrences?
I think that you nailed it earlier. We've had all this discussion, which is high level. I would like to see an auditor's report that goes beyond saying retrieve money, pay back this, to naming and shaming. We need to know who were the beneficiaries. We need to know those who allowed these lapses to happen. And they need to be fired. They need to be sanctioned. If we don't do that, next year, we'll have a whole new set of things we are dealing with. Up to this point, I mean, in the jurisdictions that we've seen change, they have good policies and laws, and they have good enforcement to the extent that individuals are held culpable. And so all these things we are describing, they are officers whose tasks, whose job description say, you are responsible for checking this, supervising that, monitoring that, signing off on that. They are being paid by us to play that monitoring, checking role. If they have failed to do it on their watch, they should be penalized. I don't understand this principle we have in the public sector where it appears nobody is touchable. You know, you will not get away with this in the private sector. Why do we allow it in the public sector? Why don't we have names and contacts? Why don't we sanction them? If it's a thing about the public sector arrangement, that is where we should start and change things. We need a much more robust response in identifying individuals. Let's not just retrieve the money. Who allowed the money to go in the first place? So if you take the Ministry of Finance and those three names, as you pointed out, how was the system developed? Who got the names in? Who signed up? Everybody has a personal file in an office. Where is the file for these three people? Where are their pictures? Who signed up? How did they get into the system? You will find somebody culpable. Once you start doing that, people will be more cautious because there will be a deterrent for them to get involved in these kinds of actions.
Adam, still on deterrence, can we say that the recommendations made by the Auditor General after uncovering these infractions are punitive enough?
No, they are not. That's what I'm trying to underscore. That a large majority is retrieve, be more cautious, be careful, you know, and the people who allowed the money to go out in the first place, because mind you, it's either an audit report implementation committee that must set or pack, and they never get any real results in the space. After the horse has escaped, we are now saying just retrieve it. Who allowed it? On whose watch did it get through the gates? I don't think it's punitive enough. I think we should find the people, because what we are doing is just to say, okay, once you get the thing back, it's okay. No. Who is responsible for allowing this non-compliance? Who is responsible for not having done the due diligence? Who is responsible for the irregularity? In spite of the fact that there is law, there is policy. There should be sanctions assigned to non-compliance, to lack of due diligence, you know, to irregular. What are the sanctions and who is being sanctioned? Until we get to that point, we really are not making progress.
Right. Thank you so much, Adam Senan, who is co-chair of the Citizens Movement Against Corruption. I'm just going to go back to Kojo Poku, who's an economist. I'm still staying on deterrence. Kojo Poku, I just want to hear your angle. What would constitute appropriate punitive measures for these infractions that have been uncovered? Because we look at the report and the recommendations do not cut it. The recommendations are not hard-hitting enough to ensure that year after year, we do not have to read reports that show these kind of infractions. But I'm going to come back to you to answer that question in a moment. We have to go for a quick break from our sponsors. We'll be right back. Welcome back to Spotlight on MX24 television. Thank you for staying with us. We are taking a look at the 2021 Auditor General's report, which shows some very disturbing, very worrying, very embarrassing infractions, a lot of them amounting to various sums of cedis. I have been speaking with Edam Senanu, who is co-chair of the Citizens Movement Against Corruption, Vitus Azim, an anti-corruption campaigner, and Kojo Poku, who is an economist. I was just going to Kojo Poku to touch on the kind of reactions that we should be having. Because when you look at the Auditor General's report and the recommendations that have been made by the Auditor General, they are very soft landing recommendations. Do we need harder-hitting recommendations to put at least some deterrence against these kind of infractions? Because these infractions are man-made and are committed by individuals within the system that's supposed to be doing the right due diligence. Somebody, somewhere, is either deliberately being corrupt or someone is failing to do their job. And how does the state clamp down on this if recommendations continue to be soft? So, Kojo Poku, that's my question to you.
Thank you very much. So, we the citizens, especially given the period we find ourselves, it's difficult to come by money. So, any little amounts that will go away, we are very furious about it, and you want to take it back and also punish you. It's just like you take your case, somebody offended you, you take it to a court. You'll be happy if the judge will give the person a heavy punishment, but the punishment should also be in the law. The judge has to go through the law and get the punishment that have been stated by the law before he can apply it. So I believe that some of these problems that we are seeing, sometimes it's because of the how they are scheduled, the schedule officers, the difficulty at which they are working on. Not all of them are based on criminality, people who want to steal money. Let me give you a story in the United States that will tell you that you were asking a question about the previous farmer, 4 years or so. We have been seeing a declining pattern of the irregularities. And it is something that probably we have been doing something right, at least. That's why we are seeing that. And it may be the effect of the digitalization that we are working on. So in 1987 in the United States, people used to file their tax. But in filing their taxes, they have to file for a deduction. So if you have children, dependents, if you state their names, the number, the government will give you a tax refund based on your children that you state on your tax file. So on a given night, about 16 million American children get lost. What happened? It happened that one smart professional realized that people were stating names of people, of children that they did not have. So all that he asked the authority to do was that, okay, instead of stating their names, writing their names, ask them to state their social security number, which is like our Ghana ID card over here. Once that reform came into being, many people couldn't write the names of those children. So they say it's a scam. In a given midnight, we saw that about 16 million children were kidnapped, but not properly kidnapped, but because they were in the system for people to take advantage of. So many of the problems that we are seeing is because people have studied our system and they are taking advantage of. So many a times, if you go too hard on the person, another person that will come may be going through the same problem. So that's why probably what we are going through now, we are seeing a reduction, though we don't like it, but something good is happening. We have to be happy about that and also ask for more, that it should be eliminated, the situation be eliminated. And for situation to be eliminated, we need a proper platform and structures that will help people to work at their best. And I think that the digitalization process that is going on will be very helpful. And for punishment, you cannot just punish people which is not based on law. They will actually also take you to court. So Auditor General usually base his punishment or advice on the law.
Mr. Poku, do you think it's general some prosecutorial powers?
Yes, not even if we are giving the Auditor General prosecutorial powers, it also depends on whether the infractions are punishable by maybe as a criminal offense. Many of them, they are not criminal offense. You may not get criminality issued in it. So even if you send it to court, on what law that you are going to prosecute that person. But of course, in other areas, so for example, we were discussing about the judges, how the amount that they purchase the car, you know, we are just putting this around so that morally, they will realize that your name is coming out, that you are cheating the system. But many people, if you give them the opportunity, they'll also cheat the system because it is law. It is based on the law. So they will do the same thing. So once you give people the opportunity, they will do the same thing. And they are not going against any law. So even if you give the Auditor General prosecutorial powers, they will not be able to get any law to support them going to court and punish people. But I think rather we should put things in a proper framework so that they will not even get the opportunity to do all this work if indeed they have intention to do. So if, for example, car auction is supposed to be put on internet for everybody to see it and put his bid for it. It's on internet. There's a website where everybody living in Ghana can bid for that car. The judge or any other person will not be able to pay that small amount of money. That is not worth the value of the car. So we should put in things or framework that will not allow this kind of deceit to happen. I think that is proper than thinking about just going ahead to punish people. Otherwise, if the system remains the same, you keep on punishing people, sack people, new people that will come will continue to be doing the same thing. We've been doing that to our governance system because we usually say corruption. Then we sack, we vote against the government in power. Then the new government will come, the same thing continues. Sometimes it's the policy that they are not doing it well. So we should actually start acting for the system that should be changed, rather than just the individual in power, individual worker, or the people in power that they are supposed to be in, but the system. Otherwise, we keep on changing and things will not change.
Right, thank you, Kojo Poku. So if Kojo Poku is more focused on a reform of the system rather than just punishing persons. Let me go to Vitus Azim, find out if he thinks the same. Vitus, what would be an appropriate punishment for persons who are directly identified to have aided in causing loss to the state in the process of the discharge of their duties?
I think we have adequate laws to address issues like this. So the problem, I wouldn't be talking about maybe amending the laws or enacting new laws. We have adequate anti-corruption laws, laws that insist on accountability. The problem is who is supposed to act on these laws. When the Auditor General comes out with his report, Parliament sits on it and endorses the recommendations. It goes back to the executive. The executive has no motivation, it has no commitment to pursue these people who have caused financial loss to the state. Otherwise, they would have referred it to Attorney General. Those that you have to pursue, let's say, go if the court prosecute, the executive doesn't do that. But we also know that the Auditor General has powers to surcharge or disallow some expenses. The Auditor General has not been very serious about this aspect. Mr. Domovo started to do it, and then we all saw what happened to him. So the Auditor General do not have the motivation to do that as well, and that's where the problem lies.
Right, Vitus, I'm going to come back to you in a moment with more questions, but I just want to open the phone lines for people who are listening to join us in this discussion, and that's 0550-331511. Again, 0550-331511, And then there's 020-4738-481. That's 020-4738-481. I'm just going to go over a few more irregularities that were identified, and those should be rolling on your screen right about now. There were some cash irregularities which amounted to some 45 million Ghana cedis. This is some 4.23% of the irregularities identified in the report. These cash issues were caused by unapproved disbursements, unpresented payment vouchers, unaccounted revenue, unsupported payment vouchers, funds to banks that were not credited, non-lodgement of public funds, misapplication of funds, and retired imprests. Included in this total cash irregularity of 45 million Ghana cedis was an amount of 2,446,321 cedis, 48 pesos, representing about another portion of that report. And also there was an amount of $727 paid on 14 payment vouchers, but were not presented for examination during the period reviewed. There was also some indebtedness and loans and advances that amounted to some 30 million Ghana cedis, over 30 million Ghana cedis. We have someone on the line. Let me just quickly come to you. Hello, good evening. Good evening, your name and where you're calling from. Okay, I think we've lost you, but you can try the line again. But on your screen rolling right now, you will find the figures and the details of what I'm just talking about. There were also some significant amount of irregularities. That was about 9 million Ghana cedis owed by 62 companies and individuals to the Ministry of Food and Agriculture for the purchase of some tractors. Interesting there. Also some payroll irregularities, a total of 5,583,498 Ghana cedis. Let me come back to Vitus. Let me take a break from these figures, although they are not exhausted. Vitus, when you look at the amount of money that is lost during leakages, how are the people supposed to react when they do not see a genuine effort to plug these leakages, but we find government coming to us and asking for tax increases in certain areas, sometimes implying that citizens are not paying enough tax, which we know that the tax net is not wide enough, but the regular Ghanaian is indeed taxed very well.
Well, let me say that it is not necessarily the case that irregularities mean loss of money.
Okay.
Irregularities could mean that you've taken money to go and use for a particular purpose, and you have not yet accounted for them. Or you've used it even for the national interest, but against what you're supposed to have used it for.
Wrong, okay.
So sometimes when we quote a huge figure, it does not necessarily mean all that is lost to the state. There are other ways that these things happen.
That some of them can be retrieved. Anyway.
Yes, some of them can be retrieved. Or somebody is a car loan, he's been paying, but he's not being credited with the amount that he has been paying. So some of them are monies that can be recovered or have already even been recovered, but they have not yet been recorded. So let's know that. But now, how can we ensure that this don't happen again? As I said earlier on, we have the laws that we need to apply, just that people are not applying the laws. And I've said that the Auditor General too can do a surcharge and disallow some of these expenses. Having said that, the most important thing is sanction. Do we sanction people that are found to have engaged in these irregularities. Sometimes the government can say, oh, we have removed 500 ghost names in the payroll. Who put those ghost names in the payroll? What have you done about those people whose names are put on the payroll? Those names on the payroll, have you identified them? Have you tried to recover the money that were paid to these people? You should arrest them and make them refund the money. Because you cannot have ghost names. Somebody's responsible for the payroll. So somebody would have put those ghost names on the payroll. But then, of course, sometimes these are people that are not working, but government decides to put their names on the payroll. And then you put them there and you come up and they know we've discovered names on the payroll. That is dishonesty on the part of the government sometimes.
Right.
I'm not saying this government, but I mean, it has been like that for some time. Several governments have come to, we have this number of names on the payroll, and that they are ghost names. How did the ghost names come on the payroll? So one is the sanctions of those who have put the names there, and also those that have benefited from it. You should go after them and recover the money, and we're not doing that.
Right, Vitus, if I can just get your last words.
The problem with all these irregularities and whatever the Auditor General comes out every year is that we don't have a commitment on the side of the executive to deal with people that are engaged in these irregularities. No sanctions. It's the Auditor General names the people sometimes, but then what we do to them, we don't do anything to them. And I think that's the unfortunate aspect of our system. And for people who have promised to protect the public purse, to sit down and do all this, it's very unfortunate.
Right. Let me just go back to the line where we have Kojo Poku. Kojo Poku, your last submission, please.
So just to re-emphasize the issue about the irregularities are not necessarily a corruption. So some of them, like the companies, the oil companies that are supposed to pay GRA, sometimes it's very difficult, it's dicey. You don't want to collapse these companies because they owe the government, at least they employ people, but it's become very difficult when they are not paying their tax liability. So it's become very dicey to deal with those situations. But it is important that when you have discovered that some of these companies, this is the way that they live. One way is to name and shame. So you bring their name out to shame them that they are owing this amount and they are not paying. This is what we know. Some of them even try to increase their cost in order to pay less income tax. So we should be able to get them, name them. Legally, they don't owe us, but we think that they are big enough that they should be paying high income tax or pay tax, but they are not doing so because they are decreasing their profit or by decreasing their profit by increasing a lot of cost at the expenses side. So many companies that do that. So we should be able to bring them to the public attention. So you get a big company is not paying, so you have to bring those into attention. And also, I will keep on talking about the system. We should make sure that the system works so that if you employ me, if you employ any other person to be a schedule officer on it, you have all the tools that they need to have so that they can work properly. So we need to have that in place so that they will be able to work, so that this ghost name and other things, I'm telling you now, for example, in West of Ghana, everybody ID card, ID number has been collected, and I believe that it is going to be very difficult because we can have two names, but there's no way you can have two ID numbers. So in that case, you eliminate this kind of ghost names and other things that people may take the opportunity of, and if you ask them, they may think that it was just a mistake or something. So I think the system we should be able to develop to the extent that nobody will be even happy, because I think now as people's names are coming out, people will not even be happy because their name will definitely be in the media and other places. So they will not do that. And I believe that like judges and other high level people, once their names come into the public, what they are doing, there's no illegality, but morality will tell them that they need to think about what they are doing. the car that they are buying at a low side. They have not done any sin, they have not done any criminal thing, but is it good? So they will start thinking about it, and that will influence us. And as I said, system, it will be able to solve many of these problems for us.
Thank you so much. That's Kojo Poku, he's an economist. We spoke earlier with Vitus Azim, an anti-corruption campaigner. We also spoke with Edem Senano, who's co-chair of the Citizens Movement Against Corruption. My name is Nwong Falong. This is Spotlight on MX24 Television. And on behalf of the entire team, I'd like to thank you for the time that you spent with us this evening. We'll be right here, same time, 5 p.m. tomorrow. Do join us. Good evening.